that's, or the other way around, sorry. It would be about the expression of the experience of painting. Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Stephanie, bitte.
I wanted to ask from where you did Aliyah, but I think I already
When?
No, like from where?
Your personal biography.
Well, the first time or the second time?
Both, if you like to share.
I came in '49. I was
19.
right, 1949. I know it looks like 1849. Right. I was born in a DP camp, the same DP camp in the same room with his mother. And we only found out about it like
a deportation camp
20 years ago. You know, we found each other and adopted each other. This makes him my nephew because we adopted each other as brother and sister. You see, and then my parents left. We went to the States. I grew up in New York City. I like to say today that I'm a former citizen of New York City. I don't know about the U.S., but New York City. And then we came back here in '84.
Nomi H.
Thank you. But what other useless things would you recommend we do to enrich our lives?
Music, you know, literature. You know, I mean, looking at nature, you know, is also, you know, what's its use? You know, maybe they can tell you that there's something chemical that happens to you when you do that, you know, and it could be true, but you know, this shouldn't be the reason you do it, you know. And you know, it's always a more enriching thing to be able to look at it, you know, an event in nature, you know, look at nature and say, oh, this just looks like, you know, this just looks like a, you know, a Corot painting, or this reminds me of, you know, Piero della Francesca fragment, you know, in a fresco somewhere. This is a very cultivated way of looking at the world, but just to look at it, you know, and in a documentary, you know, way, in a useful way, is doesn't do much for
you. We talk a lot about in our literature classes about how the present artist has some sort of responsibility to know his or her place in the context of tradition. So how often when you're painting do you keep in mind some of your predecessors or your place in a traditional historical sense?
All the time, in thousands of multiple levels. Just all that, because that's who I am. You know, I mean, you're not born with this stuff, you acquire it. And when it's important to you, then you acquire as much as possible. And your particular take, you know, is what makes it a unique experience, you know. I mean, who I love, let's say, as a painter, I mean, just to simplify it, who, you know, my heroes, my influences, you know, are unique. And even if I find somebody who has exactly the same influences that I do, I mean, his particular view of it is going to be, well, that thing that makes his own voice, just like your voice, you know, something, you know, very unique.
Steph?
Yeah, I read something this morning that Marianne Moore wrote about poetry. Poetry should describe imaginary gardens with real toads in them.
With real?
Real toads in them.
Real toads in them?
Okay. You said before that every painting, certain paintings you do are all fiction. Is that really true? I see a field here. I see trees. It's natural, but it's not nature. Isn't most painting a combination of imagination and toads?
Well, I'm not sure what she means by toads. I wouldn't want toads in my paintings, you know, or you know, things like that. It's all in our heads. Everything is in our heads, so everything is really, I think, you know, just, you know, part. Do you teach poetry?
No, I do poetry.
Oh, you do poetry, sorry. Okay. So, yeah, I kind of, you know, one of my rabbis is Wallace Stevens. Mm-hmm. You know, and I read not only his poetry, but, you know, his other writing as well, you know, which is more philosophical in nature. You know, I just relate to it tremendously, and I've learned tremendous amounts from, you know, from reading him. You know, this stuff is just all in our heads, and it's wonderful that it is. You know, everything, all of it, you know, religion, you know, ideas, you know, our view of the world, you know, because, you know, the reality would probably just be horrific. Okay. So.
We have time for 2 more questions, I think. Darcy, then I'm going to take, oh, sorry, Ron, I'm going to take the last one.
Thanks. Since making the Israel scene has really impacted your process here?
No. It's probably the opposite. If I may. 0. You know, I mean, there's just really no history, not much of a history of, or visual history in the Jewish world. It's just something that's, I mean, there are other contributions that we've made that are amazing, right? But not visually. I mean, and there's still a really long way to go. I mean, you know, it's hard to look here. You know, all you do is just spend a very long time in Italy. You know, and then when you come in, you know, you come in and you land and you look down at Tel Aviv, your eyes hurt, your head hurts. You know, I mean, you know, there are reasons, and I understand the reasons, you know, but it's just. When I came here, I thought I was in a cultural desert. I mean, a visual desert, not a culture. I mean, there are other, you know, the literature, you know, has always moved me, and I love it, and I'm connected to it. Okay. You know, the poetry also.
So let me ask the last question. I'll go back to a poem. This is the end of our poetry course for this semester. To quote Wallace Stevens' Snowman, writes, which concludes with the nothing that is not there and the nothing that is. In this painting of Tel Kakun, so much of it and much of your painting is about sort of a nothing that is there. Mm-hmm. You're trying to paint light, you're trying to paint air that dominates the painting.
Yeah.
What is that relationship between trying to paint something that almost is ethereal? Painting that nothing that is there.
But you know, I know what you mean. You know, I don't know how it happens. You know, I'm particularly interested. I mean, if you look at my website and you look at, let's say, the last decade or so of work, you know, I mean, there's just something about air. You know, you don't even know what to call it, because it's not just air. It's, you know, it's this kind of ether. It's a mixture of air and light. And we don't really have a word for it. I don't think anyone has a word for it, as far as I know. But you know, I'm after that.
Okay. And we're grateful for it. Thank you, Yisrael. Thank you so much.
Thank you. English.